Brian Grimes, your real estate mentor, back with another action-packed session. Today, we're going to be doing some Q&A. So it's really about questions that have been coming in from you guys over the last week or two. So I kind of compile these questions if I think they're really good and a lot of people can get value out of them. I'll take them and then we'll discuss them here. If you guys have questions as we're working our way through this, make sure you drop them in the chat section, in the comment section, and we will answer your questions as they come through. If you're new to the channel, like, comment, subscribe, leave a comment that says I subscribed. For everyone who leaves that comment, I'm going to send you instant access to my free real estate training. It'll show you how to acquire properties for pennies on a dollar all across the country. You don't want to miss out on that free offer. If you want to learn about some of the different programs that we have for you, we have free training links in the description. Just click the links in the description. The ride along, I get a lot of questions about the real estate ride along. We are doing that on January 13th, which is the second Saturday of the new year. If you want in on that, VIP mentees, of course, will get priority to that. If you're not already in the mentorship program, it's a good way to, one, you get to spend a day with me live in Philly, boots on the ground, kind of seeing the operation, inspecting deals together, picking my brain about real estate and how to get started, building rehab budgets, all that fun stuff. But you'll also get laced up with some of the course content as well for everybody who attends that ride along. There is a price for the ride along as well. But we only have about, we'll bring out about 10 to 15 people and we only have a few seats left. So if it's something that you want to do, make sure you reach out ASAP because we're running out of tickets and we don't do a ton of these. So I want to make sure that you guys will get tapped in there. So click the links in the description to tap in if you want to reach out to me about, any of that stuff. Also the boots on the ground program. I've been getting more inquiries about that, especially now. I don't know if you guys know this, but rates have been falling. As of today, the average 30-year is around 6.7%, which is substantially lower than they've been throughout this year. So rates are already falling, which has been the prediction, and they'll continue to fall as we get into 2025. And I'm already seeing right now, like the comps that have hit the market in let's say November. So I'm seeing comps as of late November, mid to late November, that are just through the roof. And it kind of caught me off guard as I was looking through the market and scanning different deal flow and comps a couple of days ago. I was like, man, these comps are in the dead of the winter, just hitting the top of the market in pockets of the city that I haven't seen properties really sell this high in. So it's an interesting time right now to be in the market, to not be sitting on the sidelines. So don't sit on the sidelines, don't wait. And that kind of brings us a little bit into kind of the mindset. I dropped a video on Instagram. They said the audio is off. Let me, is the audio choppy? Just drop a comment if the audio is choppy, or if the audio is good. I'm not sure. I can always reset. But Mike, is the audio choppy? Is that okay? Let me exit and come back in. And I'm plugged in on my headset too, so sometimes it'll just happen. I'll be right back. Yeah, that should be a little bit better. You guys can let me know in the chat section, in the comment section. If it happens again, I'll just have to bounce and come back in. But a little bit of mindset, like yeah, much better. Yeah. So this morning I dropped a video. I get it from a lot of people. And I was just talking to a guy, he's 50 years old. And he just called me like tonight inquiring about the mentorship program. And he's just like, man, like, I feel like I'm running out of time. Like he's 50, he's working, he's making money, but he's like, Brian, am I running out of time here? Like I want to leave my kids with something. I want to leave my family with some real estate wealth. And I feel like I'm just stuck in this rat race. And he's asking me kind of about my journey and how I got out. And I'm just like, man, you got to get out. You got to burn that 9-to-5 bridge. Ultimately, you have to make it so that there's no way back. There is no, like mentally, no path back to purely being a 9-to-5 level employee. Even if you are working a 9-to-5, there's a difference between working a 9-to-5 and having the employee mindset, truly. And I just think it's about mentally burning those bridges. I mean, with real estate, if you learn how to invest the way that we talk about how to invest without cash and credit, like I'm looking at people in the chat right now who are investing without cash and credit right now. They're doing no money down strategy, subject to like right actively as we speak. Our youngest mentee is closing on like $25,000 worth of commission, no cash, no credit deals this month. He's like 20 years old. You know, people are out doing it. And once you learn that, like you have to, if you haven't taken the steps to get started yet, like some of us here are new or haven't tapped into mentorship, haven't taken the steps yet. If you haven't acquired the knowledge to go out and invest in real estate and build wealth for you and your family, you're kind of still in that position where you're like, is this real? Can people really do this? Who do I trust? Like you have all of this. I don't want to say it's purely fear. Like some of it is true. Some people aren't trustworthy. Some people are just selling you and they can't really educate you. But once you learn that, once you get that skill set, you kind of have to imagine yourself, like get all those fears out of the way and to say, what if I got the knowledge and I was in a position now where I could invest with no money down strategies, or I had some capital, but I knew how to put it into the market and make money. And I could outproduce from real estate what somebody would pay me in a 9-to-5. What if I woke up in that reality? There would be no way back is the answer kind of that. Like there would be no way back to the 9-to-5. There would just be no way back. You would go to your wife, even if you were stressed out about real estate, you go to your wife and be like, hey, honey, I'm thinking about getting a job. And she'd be like, no, you can't do it. You can't go back. Like you be in that position where she's like, no, you're too valuable for the family in the real estate game. You can't go back. I'm not going to tolerate that in this marriage. And you're like, whoa, like there's no way back. Even your support system will not allow you to go back. And that's a different reality to wake up in. But that is the reality of where you want to be. That's the person that you need to continue to push and strive to become. Because once you get there, you will have the freedom. A part of this, when they say financial freedom, is two words. The financial piece is just having the money, but then there's the freedom aspect. And you almost get the freedom before you start to hit your money goals. Because real estate, you know, once you get so good at it, it can support you. There's like a base level of support that might be $4,000 or $5,000 a month, enough to just cover your expenses. And then there's your income goals, 10, 20, 30,000 a month, where you're able to travel and kind of enjoy the fruits of the labor. But you will achieve freedom before you achieve the financial goals. So just enjoying that freedom and staying tapped in on that, the freedom's enough. I can tell you guys that, you know, having lived it, the freedom alone is enough. It's enough of a reason to go on the journey to continue to push yourself. Don't worry about the financial aspect, because that'll all come together for you as you get smarter, a little bit wiser, as you're in the game longer. But you're not necessarily running out of time, because with real estate, you can reset the clock. Your time, you are running out of time if you're stuck in a 9-to-5, because your time is like super compressed. You get 8 hours of sleep if you're lucky. You got to commute, and then you're 8 hours in on the job if you're lucky, if not more, if you're not taking it home with you. Then you're trying to put in a little bit of time with the kids. That's not working out too well. And you have no time. Every day you pass out, you wake up again, it's Groundhog's Day, you do it again. When you get freedom from the 9-to-5, you get double, triple the time in a day. You can do whatever you want with your time. And in getting more time, unlocking time essentially, you're now not running out of it. So even if you're later in the game and just getting started, or thinking about getting started and feeling like I'm running out of time, you can unlock time by learning how to invest in real estate and break yourself free from the 9-to-5, which is your biggest time constraint. So just stay tapped in on the journey, stay locked in. I mean, it's a great time to invest. Rates are falling, prices are rock solid. There's a lot going on in the market. And for the people who get in and continue to go on along this journey, you're going to have a lot of success. For the people who sit on the sidelines, you're going to have a lot more sitting and sideline watching to do. But it's never going to lead to success. You're not going to sit on the sidelines, watch everybody fail, and then you're going to step up and win. That reality is not going to happen. The people who are out playing in the game are going to get better, and they're going to continue to win, and you're going to continue to watch until you get out in the game, get some lumps if you want to learn from the School of Hard Knocks. If not, tap into mentorship, and you'll learn the game, and you'll be good. Let's talk about this. Guys, if you have questions, comments, drop them in the chat section. We'll keep flowing. If my audio messes up, let me know, and I'll kind of tap back in. And we're going to keep flowing through. I want to talk about this 10-pack exit strategy for you guys, because it's a cool concept that I want you to lock into mentally. It's in many ways a concept that I started off with, but I didn't. Audio quality again. I'm going to tap in. I started off with this, but I didn't end here. I did 300 deals. I'm going to tap out and tap back in, and then we'll go into this 10-pack exit strategy. There too. So I just turn off my Bluetooth too. That may help. So the 10-pack exit strategy. What this is focusing on how to get your way out of the 9-to-5 with real estate. So if I was starting off fresh, not knowing a ton about real estate, but just getting my feet wet, how would I get my way into a position where I could retire from real estate, where I could get out of the 9-to-5 completely? So how do I make that transition for myself? The way that I make that transition for myself is I focus on this 10-pack exit strategy. So what the 10-pack is I want to focus on one zip code. As I'm doing my research, I want to find the ideal zip code for me. And that's going to change depending on who you are. Some people are more like, hey, I'm an A-class investor. I come from a well-off family. I have some capital, and I want to invest in the nicer parts of the city or, rural areas. Some people are like Brian, like me, like I'll do C-class, put me on the outskirts of the developing areas, and that's where I'm going to make my money. So you can kind of focus in there. The 10-pack strategy is narrowing yourself down to one zip code, or maybe two zip codes, but very tightly packed together within about a 20-minute driving radius. It's very important to be within a 20-minute radius for all your properties, because you'll get what's called economy of scale. So as you're working on these properties and developing your 10 properties within this tightly knit zip code, you're going to be able to share contractors. You're going to be able to bounce from job to job. You're going to be able to store materials in the basement of this property and easily transport them over there. There's just so many different efficiencies that get built when you're focusing in on one zip code. And your goal is going to be to get 10 properties very tight together. I did this when I started. I started off with 8 properties on one block. That was kind of like when I really got serious about this. I found one block that was completely run down. And what I did was I bought 3 of them essentially from a guy who had bought them off the sheriff's sale. So got 3 of them, and then started skip tracing the other, which is a strategy that we teach if you've never heard of it. Skip tracing the other owners on the block. So the other properties that were run down in shell condition, skip tracing them, calling them saying, hey, I own some properties across the street. I'm interested in yours. Would you take X, Y, Z? And I was essentially just offering them what they would get from the sheriff's sale. These were rundown properties. And that ended up translating into about 8 properties in that first year on that block. Ultimately, 12 properties on that block, because I continued to build around it. But I can tell you the efficiencies were insane. And then when you go to property manage these deals, it's even easier, because you can hire one management company, or you can kind of do a self-management play where you get somebody who's close to the area, who's a handyman, and they can manage everything efficiently. All of your issues are going to be centralized. So the efficiency, the cost, if you had somebody who was going to cut the grass or shovel snow when it snows, those efficiencies are built directly into the product. And this is going to get you out faster. This is going to protect you from burning out. And it's going to be a lot more streamlined. The cash flow goal is, if you can get $500 a month to start out of your 10-pack properties. So each property, the goal is $500 a month in cash flow. That's all you need to get started. Why? Because the cash flow is going to grow long term. This is going to be your nest egg. This is not what you want to leverage to the hills or refinance indefinitely until there's no cash flow. $500 a month today, if you hold on to those properties for 5 to 7 years, that's going to grow to about 750, 800 a month per property, just with basic rent inflation. And long term, that's probably going to be closer to like 15, 1600 a month per property in cash flow if you just hang on to them for 15, 20 years. So 10 properties, 1500 a month per property is $15,000 a month in cash flow. I mean, that's enough for most people, their benchmark is 10,000 a month. These properties, even if you bought them and started off with 500 a month in cash flow, they're going to appreciate to about $1,000 a month each in terms of the rent growth, probably within the first 10 years. So that's your $10,000 a month mark, which is for most people financial freedom, right there. Just not having to get up and go to work all day. So focus on your 10-pack strategy. Just going out, and the fastest way to get to 10 is to just do one. My goal was to do 10, one a year for 10 years with this type of a strategy and focus. I ended up doing 300 properties in 7 years. So you can certainly outgrow this and expand upon it. But this is a good place to start and focus. The fastest way to get to 10 is just get one and then do whatever got you to one over and over again. But adding in these different wrinkles of creative financing, no money down strategies, skip tracing, finding motivated sellers, top level negotiations, it's going to get you there faster. Speaking of negotiations, we had a deal today. It kind of went under contract and we didn't like it. And we just got it back under contract today through the Boots on the Ground program. It goes to show like how knowledge and proper negotiation works and just understanding the cost of construction. We ended up getting this deal under contract for $85,000, and it had been on the market. It's kind of all of my principles, right? Like it started off being listed at $118,000, and I want to say August, September. No, too overpriced. They drop it to 100, 95, 92. And then we come in at 85,000, and they're like, we'll take it. The only thing I didn't like was I wish we would have offered lower because they took the 85, they didn't even counter, which was a warning sign for me. That's a red flag. But as we analyzed the deal closer, we saw some corner cuts that we weren't thrilled about, quite frankly. So we look into these corner cuts, and I'm just like, it's too much. I know the cost of construction, what we need to do to get it up to par. We need it up to 10,000 in the deal, or nobody's like, it's a dud. Nobody's going to buy it. And the seller is very motivated. I can tell from the price drops and the fact that this deal has been sitting on the market for so long. So we just go back to the seller and tell them, look, you're going to have to cut the price to, and this is after signing the contract, you're going to have to cut the price to 75,000 or no deal. They, yelled, kicked and screamed, and 3 days later, boom, 75,000. Giving us the wiggle room, that extra 10K to get the renovation done and make this deal profitable. The important part of the story is you have to, well, two things. One, you get what you ask for. You can negotiate. You can push pricing down, even after you've done a contract. But you can only do that. You don't just do that like randomly. You can only do that if you know what you're doing and if you know the cost of construction. Because I know the cost of construction, I can look at that deal and say, well, if it's going to cost me the extra 10,000, it's going to cost everybody that. So you're either going to do the deal with me at the appropriate number where I can win, or you can sit on the market through the whole winter and keep price dropping until you get into my range. And they kind of knew it. So they were just like, man, we might as well just drop this price and take this deal. But the guy in the Boots on the Ground program's like, I'm sure kind of like, wow, I didn't think that was going to happen, because you don't know how a seller's going to react. But I just know from experience, the cost of construction is the cost of construction is the cost of construction. If I got to pay it, everybody's got to pay it. And there's only going to be one deal that makes sense. There's only going to be one deal that makes sense. Let's get into some Q&A. Guys, drop your questions in the chat section. I'm going to pop up a question, and then I'm going to jump back in because I'm getting a little choppy again. Mortgage, cool. So who missed the 10K the first time? Yeah, the on the first screen. When you're doing, that's a good question. said, who missed the 10,000 in additional renovations? This is part of the process. It's part of why you have a two-step investigation process, an inspection process on your deals. So when you're doing investing, real estate investing, like I do it, like I preach it, and like I do it, we're all about what? Abundance and high volume deal flow. We want to see a lot of deals. We want to look at 100 deals to find a great 10, and then to get a good 5 under contract, because some of the sellers are going to be unreasonable. In order to do that many inspections, you cannot send out your top guy. Your top guy meaning your foreman, your guy with 30 years experience renovating properties, who manages the crew, who's boots on the ground, who has all of the knowledge essentially, or the most knowledge and the most experience. Most people think, well, I'll send out the most knowledgeable guy on every deal, then I'll never make a mistake. But you're going to burn the guy out. He's not going to be efficient, because he's one of two things are going to happen. Either he's going to be doing all these inspections, and that's great, but then he's not managing the projects, the active projects. So then you're losing efficiency on your actual money time, which is actually building through them when the game is on the line. So that's incredibly inefficient. As a strategy, you're going to lose in one area or another. What I do and what I preach is a two-step system. One is sending in a younger junior inspector who can see a lot of the big picture stuff, but not necessarily all of the structural issues. Some of the structural issues, but not all. So I'm going to send them out first to get that high level analysis, get a big picture overview. And then I'm going to go back in with my head guy once we land on pricing. So once I go to the seller, I negotiate them down into a range I'm comfortable with. Before I send out the money, the deposit, I'm going to go back in with my top guy. And when you go back in with the top guy, he may catch some corner cuts based on his 30 years or 40 years of experience that a junior inspector will never catch, that maybe even your property inspector will not catch. Some guy you paid $600 to do official property inspection is probably not going to catch it either, because the property inspector doesn't build houses for a living. So there's a different acumen there. So it's not like a straight up miss. It's more of an intentional or procedural thing. Like there are going to be deals where I would say about, with this system I'm talking about, 80% of the deals smooth. Junior inspector went in, and the senior guy comes in, it looks just like what the junior said and thought. 20% is why you have this system, when you can catch them. And then even within those catches, there are times where you can renegotiate the pricing and get it done. This isn't the first time I've renegotiated pricing and gotten it done. It's probably realistically, over the course of hundreds of deals, it's probably the 40th or 50th time. With the Boots on the Ground program, maybe it's like the 5th or 6th time. It happens at times. And that's why you have the system. What you don't want is to be like everybody else, which is you're just buying the deals and then you send in the contractors after you bought it, and then they're telling you there's going to be extra 10,000, and now it's coming out of pocket. So as long as you know beforehand that this thing is going to need a little bit of extra TLC, you're in a good position. So that's just a matter of systems. Some of us should probably watch that back to understand that system if you're trying to build it yourself. But if you're in a Boots on the Ground program, understand we have these systems built in for a reason, because I've made mistakes. I've purchased properties that I shouldn't have purchased and lost money because of that. So then I build these systems to prevent that from happening. And then if you're in, a mentorship program or the Boots on the Ground, you get the benefit from those different systems that we built. Guys, if you're new to the channel, like, comment, subscribe, and click the links in the description to tap in some of the free trainings that we have for you, or to learn about the Boots on the Ground program, how that works, the real estate ride-alongs, January 13th, any of those things. You can kind of reach out about those. Here's one question that we got. When doing market research, how much should I focus on square footage? Should I not buy properties that are less than 1,000 square feet? I get this question sometimes. It depends on your strategy. If you're doing things like co-living, rooming houses, and just anything of that nature where you're kind of renting by the bed, or if you're looking to improve the footprint, where it's like, hey, this is a Section 8 house, I want to get 8 beds in here, or I want to get 5 beds in here, or I want to add more bathrooms in here, you definitely want a bigger square footage. I would say in order to do co-living, you can do co-living in 1,000 square foot, your typical 1,000 square foot house. You could fit 3 beds, 3 baths in there. If you kill the dining room, kitchen, dining room, living room, and kind of make more of like an eat-in kitchen type of a space, you can get it done. 1,200 square feet, a lot more comfortable to get it done. Bigger rooms, bigger units. So you just want to think about your strategy and what your ultimate bed and bath count is. But it's not really the square footage that you should focus on. It's truly the end use that you should focus on. How and what your redesigning process is. What is your goal? If your goal, for instance, if your goal is to flip the house and you're in a pocket where people like 2-bedroom, 2-bathroom properties, and it's customary for those properties to be around 1,000 square feet because that's what that zip code calls for, then that's a great flip deal. Why would you want you don't necessarily need a bigger one. Having it be small allows you to put in a lot more value because the renovation is substantially cheaper on 1,000 square foot property versus a 1,600. So as long as you have comps that justify this 1,000 square foot property selling at the top of the market and there's a nice profit spread, you might not necessarily be targeting larger properties just for the sake of it. I would say that comes more into play on the buy and hold side if you're going for cash flow. And you want to improve the property. You want to add more beds, more baths for specific reasons like co-living. So it just depends. You should look at all properties and just find the best value. So even if I'm looking at something with more square footage, I still want it to be priced appropriately based upon what properties at that square footage are trading for on the marketplace. So it's really just all about, to me, fair market pricing for the house and the square footage. It's not necessarily about the individual square footage or screening out square footage unless you're trying to do something like co-living. Like I'm not going to try to build a 3-bed, 3-bath in an 800 square foot row home. It's not going to fit. I've tried it before, by the way. I've tried to do it down to like maybe 780 square feet. And you can get it done, but it doesn't have quite the amenities that you need. Like you can't everybody can't get their own washer dryer, or you can't even fit the washer dryer on the top 2 floors. It has to be in the basement, which can be a takeaway from an asset like that. So there's just a lot of wrinkles there that you'll get into and that you want to think about. Here's another question, and guys, as you have questions, comments, just drop them in the chat section and we'll address them as they come. Here's another question. What's the number one thing I can do to improve my deal analysis? The number one thing, so many people for starters struggle with deal analysis. People struggle all the time just analyzing the numbers on deals. That's, I think, the top issue with new real estate investors is they first will say, there are no profitable deals. I can't find them. How do I get off-market deals? Because there's the belief there are no good deals on the market because I can't see it. There's only good deals off-market, even though you still don't know how to do deal analysis necessarily. You just believe that because it's off-market, it's therefore profitable, which is not true. I've seen many off-market deals that were worse in terms of profitability than deals that are sitting right on the MLS. But the number one thing you need to do is learn how to run your comps for your deal analysis. The number one way to improve is to run your comps. Understand how to run comps on your deals, what the ultimate ARV, after repair value, is of the property. Knowing that two values, after repair value and then rental value. So what will this property rent for at the top of market or at the highest use? Highest use being co-living, Section 8, adding more bedrooms to it, and then Section 8. What is the highest use value? And then for the rental income, and then what is the after repair value from an appraisal standpoint? If you can go into any deal, knowing those two numbers, hey, it's going to be worth this after I renovate it, and it's going to rent for this. You can walk backwards through the deal and back your way into the ideal purchase price, which is essentially what I did on that deal I was telling you guys about, where we were able to push them down an additional $10,000 because I knew what the ideal purchase price was. I knew what my spread was, what the ARV was. I knew it would rent and cash flow. So that was kind of discounted. It'll cash flow because I know the rent. But I knew what the spread was. And I knew if we were 10,000 over the asking price, I had to push them down $10,000 into that fair market price so that I could build it and then still make the profit necessary to do this deal and make it make sense. So you have to know the ARV. You need to know the maximum use value and rental income, and that will improve your deal analysis tenfold. And then it's just getting practice. How to get here? Get practice. Run comps daily until you get good at it, until it takes less time. The first time you do it, it's going to take you 30 minutes to an hour. You're going to be poking around, hunting and pecking, trying to find comps, not know what you're doing. Once you get good at it, it'll take you 2 minutes to pull your comps. Okay, this is good, this is good. And then once you get really good at it because of repetition, you don't even have to do anything because you already know the value because you've seen the comps and they only change so often, once every 3 months. So the more practice and repetition that you get with the proper focus, your deal analysis is going to improve tenfold. If you made wherever you're at now, if you made a 10% improvement in your deal analysis, you could box out maybe 50% more of the competition. Whatever competition exists at your level, if you get a little bit better, a little bit faster, you will just continue to separate yourself. You create barriers to entry, and then people just can't catch you. So there's just a lot to that. This question looks longer. I'm reading it as we go with you guys. When buying a sub 2 or wrap or generic seller finance, can you skip the appraisal because you're not getting bank financing? Yes, you can. But what about the appraisal for your potential tenant buyer who gets a loan? So you're asking two questions. You're saying, well, can I skip the appraisal because I'm doing creative financing? There's no bank. I'm just taking over the existing debt and restructuring the deal and leveraging the asset. Yes, you don't need an appraisal and you can skip the appraisal. That doesn't mean you can skip knowing how to think like an appraiser. That doesn't mean you can skip what we were just talking about, which is understanding the value of the deal. See, in order to buy it and structure the deal appropriately, even as a sub 2, a wrap, or any type of generic seller financing, you need to know the value of the deal. You need to know the max use value of the deal, the max rental income of the deal. You need to know if somebody was going to rent to own this property, how much would that be? How much could they afford to put down? Even if they didn't have good credit, could they put down $10,000? What will they pay in a monthly rent? How much of that is going to go to rent credits versus which will pay down essentially the mortgage versus just going straight into your pocket. So you need to know all of these things and know the ARV. And once you know the ARV, you can then manipulate that to a degree. You can mark it up. You can add inflation to it. So if you buy it this year, you can buy it at 175. But if you buy it in 2 years, then it's going to be at 190 because we're inflating it at X% based upon interest rates falling and where prices are going to go. This is still going to be a really good deal. So you're structuring that. You're almost having more freedom to structure these deals with creative financing than you otherwise would if you were dealing with a bank. So it means you need more knowledge of how to evaluate and value these deals appropriately so that you can make sure you're making the most money and that you're only acquiring deals that make sense and that can be properly repositioned. So you're not skipping it. You're just not paying an appraiser to do the work. You're doing the work. If somebody wants to know what it's worth, you show them the comps. You say, hey, here's the comps. This is basically what an appraiser is going to pull up as the comps. The property's worth 185 right now. I'm giving you a deal. You can get it at 175. But if you buy it in 2 years, then it's going to be 190. But that's still going to be a deal because it'll probably be worth, 200, 210 with the way the market's going and rates going down. So you have to get to a higher level where you gain more comfort, with your valuation. It's just very important. Value is everything. Everything is a derivative of the appraised value. Everything is backwards from the appraised value. That's how real estate works. So you have to know how to work backwards to be able to structure good deals. What kind of strategy could you use for a 5-bed, 2-bath with 1 kitchen Looks good for a group home, fraternity, sorority housing. Price is good, co-living. Um, yeah, there. I mean, there's some co-living strategies there. 5 bed, 2 bath. There's definitely, if you're in a college type of area, if you can do that, fraternity, sorority type of group living, you can probably negotiate a higher lease amount. You could rent by the bed with that many bathrooms. You could look at a 5 bed, 2 bath. You could look into maybe converting one of those bedrooms into another full bathroom. Now you have more of a co-living setup where you can rent out a 2 bed, 1 bath to one group, and then the other two will have a 1 bed, 1 bath type of situation aligned for them, so they each have their private bathroom. So you could do some co-living. You could do some midterm rental. Midterm rental could be big there, especially if you really deck it out. But even again, if I did the midterm rental, I would still consider maybe converting the smallest bedroom into another bathroom. I'm going to come back out, go out and come back in. So yeah, there's just a lot of strategies you can do there. I would consider unless you're going to get value out of Section 8 for the 5 bed or something like that, I would go with more of a maybe convert one of the bedrooms into a bathroom and do some type of co-living strategy. Unless it'll just rent for a ton as a 5 bed, 2 bath. You just rent it out as is. If cash flow is a little lower, like 200 to 400 in cash flow, could you talk about the other benefits that make the deal worth it? I mean, definitely. I mean, there's a depreciation. I mean, it depends on if you're considered a real estate professional or not. So you'd have to talk to your accountant about if you qualify as a rep. If you're married and you're a real estate professional, any tax losses you generate, if you can wipe out all of your profitability and run at a loss, you could pass those over to your spouse, and that would take out their income, maybe reduce that down to zero, and then you would get massive tax returns. So there can be massive tax benefits to buy and hold real estate in particular that far outweigh any cash flow benefits. Any. So you have that. You have long-term appreciation of the asset from a rental standpoint. So even if it's renting now for an extra 400 a month in cash flow, that rent is going to increase long term. As that rent increases, you're going to get more money. You're going to get up to 800 a month now, 1,000 a month now off the same asset if you just hold on to it. So you have to view these assets like more of a plant, like you're watering it and it's going to continue to grow. It's going to get bigger, your cash flow. It's not stagnant. A lot of the talking heads on the internet, they talk about the now, and the now is good. You want to make cash flow now, but they never really talk about how the cash flow grows if you hang on to the properties long term. It grows to an obnoxious level. So if all you did was get in and get your hands on 5-6 deals, even if they're only cash flowing 400 a month each now, if you held on to them for 8 years, they'd be at $1,000 a month each. You'd be at six, 7, 8,000 a month in cash flow by just sticking with it. So real estate is something you do for the short term, but more for the long term. But there are lots of tax benefits. Lots of tax benefits. What system or software are you using for deal analysis? I don't use systems or software anymore. I built out my own spreadsheet, and I kind of have my own calculations and deal analysis process, and that's what I do. I kind of stick with if I had to put a pin into like what I do is I just look at the actual costs. I mean, that's all I'm doing, and that's why I don't really rely on software, because I don't need software to teach me the actual cost, because I've lived it. So I just built a spreadsheet to capture the actual cost of the investment. So the cost of the hard money loan, the carrying costs, the cost of construction, and just, taxes, insurance, all of that stuff. And once you're looking at a fairly accurate picture of the actual costs, you'll be in a good position. So I believe in kind of building out a process that is more conservative by nature that you can rely on and then run with at volume. I mean, that'll put you in a good position. There's software like PropStream. I do most of my deal analysis. I'm pulling most of my information from Redfin, and that's no secret really to anyone. But I'm doing most of that on Redfin. So once I know my numbers, and understand the property, then I don't have to worry about that it wouldn't appraise when I exit. Absolutely not. Makes so much sense. Thanks. I was overthinking. Yeah. You don't have to worry about the appraised value as long as you're doing your analysis. Because the appraiser, they're not like coming in and doing anything insane, right? Like they're just coming in and they're going to crank their numbers out and do their thing, but it's going to make a lot of sense. I mean, if you know how to think like an appraiser and the general value of the deal, maybe they come in 5K lower than you thought or 10K lower than you thought, but that's not going to kill the deal typically. And then even if you get a low appraiser, you might challenge them with your comps and then they bump it up, and then you get a higher appraiser, you hire a new appraiser and they come in 10,000 over what you thought. It goes kind of both ways. There are ways to mitigate appraisal risk altogether as you scale yourself. So there's just a lot of wrinkles around that. Guys, if you're getting value, like, comment, subscribe, leave a comment that says I subscribe, and click the links in the description to tap into some of the free trainings, information about the ride along that's happening January 13th, the Boots on the Ground program, all of that stuff. And if the sound gets choppy, just let me know. I'll hop out, hop back in, and we'll keep flowing. Do you recommend do your own in-house property management? And if so, how would you go about it? It depends. It's not that I recommend it. There's a time and a place for it. So the time and the place is not like what everybody says. What everybody typically will say is start off, you're small, so manage your own properties. That's the way to get more cash flow, because everybody's talking about the now when it comes to real estate, all the talking heads. So you'll get the most cash flow now, and that'll get you out of the 9 to 5. It really doesn't, because what it does is you don't have the experience to manage properly, and you don't have the systems and resources to do it efficiently. And therefore you burn out by doing your own management. When you're just starting, you will burn out very quickly. And that usually happens as you get closer to somewhere between 5 to 10 properties. People will burn out, and then they'll start giving them back. They'll start losing them because they can't manage the tenants. They pick bad people. They don't have their licensing together. There's like all these negatives. So what you should do is start off with a property management company. Start off by outsourcing tenant placement, property management to a third party. Let them do it. Let them deal with the headache. Let them answer the phone when it rings. Let them send out the maintenance text. Let them deal with all the drama. And you just collect the money. And two things are going to happen. One, you're not going to burn out. You're not going to be bogged down by the management piece. So you're better off there. Two, you're going to see how a system is supposed to be run efficiently. And that's just going to put you in a lot better position long term. And then when you get to your goal of 10 properties, you'll have so much, because you're paying a property management company 10%. You might have off 10 properties, let's call it $15,000 a month in gross rent coming in. So they're getting about $1,500 a month off their 10%. You'll be in a position where you could fire the property manager. Everything will be set up. You'll know how to run everything. Hire a virtual assistant. Maybe you give them $1,000 a month, and they can manage the whole 10, the 10 pack essentially. They might be able to manage 20 properties by themselves, 30 properties by themselves. So then you hand it over to the virtual assistant, and you're going to have built a property that could support that cost of the virtual assistant. It'll already be baked in because you're already paying the 10% to the property management company. So now you shift that 10% in-house, and it goes down to maybe a 5% cost. So there's a savings and an in-house control. And that's the best way to scale. So it's actually in reverse as what most people would teach. But I've lived this thing. So I've seen the power of going in both directions. You're actually better off scaling with property management first and then reverse engineering it afterwards. If my sound gets choppy, let me know. If you guys get value, like, comment, subscribe. Share the content with somebody else if you want to get value as well. Searching commercial properties for an event space. What square footage should I start with? If property and land are lease sale, should I lease or buy? I think that's, the square footage you should start with depends on how you're envisioning this event space, how big you want it to be, What types of events will you be throwing? Are you throwing weddings? Are you throwing sweet 16s? Are you throwing, like, what are you throwing? Family reunions? What are you doing in this event space is going to determine how large you need to look. But when you're doing what I would call business real estate, this is business real estate. There's straight up real estate, which is like rental properties, midterm rentals, where all we're doing is getting tenants and just doing long-term leases or midterm leases or something like that. Even Airbnb can be just what I would call like straight real estate, even though there's a more businessy aspect to it. When you're doing this event space stuff, you're now in business real estate, which means you could just go lease a property. You could go lease a space. You don't need to buy it necessarily, and then you can still make money off of it as long as you're fulfilling the obligation. Now, it's probably cheaper to lease it with a option. You can do some of that or just buy it. Like long term, if you control the value of that asset, then you control more of your profitability by limiting your costs. But you could do a lease purchase option. There's multiple ways you could do leases that could benefit you. Lease purchase option, so lease with the right to buy it within 5 years. A long-term lease, so a lease on a 2-year, but then with guaranteed rights to renew at predetermined costs, so that your costs aren't going to the roof. So there's just a lot of ways you can structure it. I would say you have to work backwards. You have to start off with the end in mind. So you should start with how you see this asset playing out, what types of events you're going to throw, what are the costs associated, what are the rents that you can get per event, how many events can you book, what's your marketing plan, like all of those things first. I think it might be safer to start off with a lease because then you're not locked in to the real estate, because if, let's say, you get into the event space and then it's not working out the way you want it to, then what are you going to do with this commercial building? Because it doesn't have a multiple. I mean, you could use it for other commercial aspects, but unless you also have that in mind as an exit strategy, what are you going to do with it? Whereas with your typical rental property, let's say you had a commercial space and an apartments above it, and the apartments covered the mortgage, that's a different type of asset than just a straight up commercial space. So it's a tougher play. I think you want to go in maybe with a lease option, especially with rates being higher right now, even though they're coming down. It could make sense to go in with a lease option so that if rates really tank in the next 2 years, you can buy it and lock in a very low interest rate. But I'm not so sure that you can't get away with a lease right now in this interest rate environment and be just as well off. The commercial space has been getting hit pretty hard. Office space is hit pretty hard. There's got to be some good deals out there for commercial space. I'm seeing them all the time, actually. So I think a lease could be good. But I would want to hear more about your end goal and what type of events you're going to throw. Guys, let me know if it sounds choppy, because I got a little break and I can hop out and hop back in. If not, I'll keep flowing. Have you heard of this from Dame? Have you heard of the strategy where you buy a building and convert the units into condos and sell them, but you still make money every month off the HOA? Yeah, I've heard of that. You can become the HOA essentially and condo out. Some people do that. They'll buy abandoned warehouses and then condo them out, and then you can kind of serve as like the HOA board and still make money off of the fees. I mean, it's a process, but you can make money off of both. You can make money off of the sale and and the fees. It just depends on what you want to do. So I don't, it's a more advanced strategy. The average person who's just getting started in the game, they don't have the capital to go execute on something like that. But it's a nice end game if you don't want to take on, I guess, the burden of pure ownership, outright ownership of the entire building. Or you have private investors who need to get their cash back out of the deal. So you're going to sell the condos to cash them out of the deal, but you still want to hang on to a piece of the cash flow. So you service the HOA. You can definitely do that. I think it's more of those types of strategies. So that's why I say it's more advanced, because it's more of like a syndication strategy. Hey, I got 5 millionaires in my circle. They're going to throw in $250,000 each. I'm going to identify the building, build it, and then I'm going to, refinance it. And then when I sell it, I'm going to sell off all these assets. That's going to be their exit. So as I'm talking to the millionaires, I'm going to sell it. I'm going to condo this out. We're going to sell them for $500,000 each. Here's what they're trading for in the market. On each sale, you guys are going to get the first 90% of all the profits. I'm going to get 10, so you guys will recover quickly. And then I'm going to sit on this thing as the HOA. You guys will get all your money back plus your return. Done deal. And that would be more of a syndication type of strategy. So it can be done, but that's higher level than, a lot of us are just looking for a way to get our feet wet, get a couple deals, get out of the 9 to 5. Once you're out and you're comfortable, you have your base and your cash flowing, then you can take on more risk. It's not that you can't jump to that right now, but if you make a mistake on that, geez, you're out of the game. You're stuck in the rat race. So I say the number one goal is to get free, then get the money. Get free first, though. Get the money. And that's the importance of the knowledge. Why I think mentorship can be so important is because it's going to get you free faster. And there ain't no price you can put on your freedom. The only reason some of us have a price for our freedom is because we ain't had it yet. We haven't had the freedom yet. So we still think that there's an appropriate price. Like, $10,000, I'm not paying $10,000 for my freedom. And it's like, you would if you had it. If you tasted freedom from the 9 to 5 for a month, and then somebody, like, let's say I snap my fingers, I knock you out of 9 to 5 for a month, and you were good, like money's kept coming in, bills paid, everything, you're like comfortable, and you're like, let me run to Whole Foods. It's like 10 o'clock, 10:30 in the morning. Run to Whole Foods, run some errands, do this, do that, go work out, take a nap, get some work done, this, that, and you had just freedom to kind of map out your day, spend the time with your family, pick up your kids from school, walk them home, do all these different things. And I came to you and said, all right, well, if you want to continue this, it's 10 grand. You'd be like, all right, let me get this 10 grand together to continue on this path. There's not really an appropriate price you can put on your own freedom. So you should get your freedom first. And then you should work your way into more higher financial goals because you have more time to achieve them. You have more time to put into yourself and where you want to be. When you close on a deal, do you take the 7-year depreciation all in the first year when you do your taxes? No, I think you're talking about bonus depreciation. I think you're talking about bonus depreciation and cost segregation studies. I actually there's a breakout session in the 100 Keys Masterclass where we go in depth into the tax benefits of buying whole real estate and cost segregation and bonus depreciation and all of these different things. There are going to be some line items in your property that you can shrink down. So the overarching theory of cost segregation is that straight line depreciation is, it's 27 and a half years, straight line depreciation, right? So if you take a house, $100,000 house divided by 27.5, and you'll get a number of maybe 3,500, 4,000, something like that. And then that will be your straight line depreciation. So every year this property is going to depreciate $4,000. So you can write that down off against your income every year, $4,000 of depreciation. Now that would be straight line, right? So what cost segregation does and bonus depreciation is it takes a property and it takes different pieces of it. So it says the roof, well, that's a capital asset. And that usually lasts about 25 years, your roof. So that's going to go with the straight line depreciation, 27 and a half years. But your rug, your carpet, well, that usually burns out in 5 years. So that's going to be a 5-year asset. So now instead of taking the cost of your flooring and stretching that out over 27 and a half years, it now gets condensed into 5 years. So if the rug costs, let's say to do the whole flooring costs, let's put a $10,000 on it, and it was 27 and a half years, it'd be like $400 a year in depreciation for the cost of the flooring. If I bang it into 5 years, now it's $2,000. So now you get, boom, $2,000 just for the flooring. And you go in each item in the house. How about the cabinets? 10 years, boom, $500 for the cabinets. Now I'm at $2,500. And you can see quickly if I pick that house apart, that $100,000 property, I can now maybe depreciate $20,000 in year one because they're getting different placements. This is a 10-year asset. This is a 5-year asset. This might be a 1-year piece of the property. This is a 7-year, and you start to accelerate the depreciation based upon the segregation of the property. So segregating it into different timelines and then accelerating them based on those timelines. So that's the theory. So it's not that it would be you can take a whole 7 years and condense it into one and take it, but you're actually pulling the pieces of the property and putting them in their proper buckets and then accelerating the depreciation. And then there's bonus depreciation on top of that, where because of bonus depreciation rules, which hopefully they get refreshed in 2024, depending on who takes office or who stays in office, we'll have to see. But if it gets refreshed and it goes back up to like 100% bonus depreciation, then it just gets even better. And I think these are good tax incentives for developers. You do want people out rebuilding our cities, and if they have to get incentivized with tax benefits, then it is what it is. You said, "Wow, so much info. Thanks so much." Definitely. Brian, can you explain the DSCR process, debt service coverage ratio? He said, thanks to Trump for a lot of these real estate benefits came into play under the Trump administration. I mean, it is what it is, and from the Republican Party. So if you get too good at real estate, you might become a Republican. That might scare some people, but you'll see what parties are kind of kicking out what rules, and you'll be like, wait, where did that come from? It's like, oh, well, this senator put this into place and lobbied for XYZ, and now you have this new tax break, and it'll happen. It happens a lot for real estate because the tax code was written for landowners and business owners. And real estate, you're both. So you'll benefit from a lot of it. Just doesn't matter what your political affiliation is. You will benefit from it as a real estate investor. Brian, can you explain the DSCR process? DSCR is debt service coverage ratio. It's pretty simple. When you're dealing with a lender, what's the lender's number one concern? You getting them their money back. So if they're going to lend you money on a mortgage, they want to make sure that you can cover it, that you can make the monthly payment. How are you going to make the monthly payment on a rental property from the rent or out of your own pocket? So you need some type of cash reserves, but then they want to see that you can make it from the rent. So they want to make sure you get a tenant in place quickly, and then they want to make sure that the rent is at the proper DSCR, debt service coverage ratio. So if the debt is $1,000 a month, the taxes, the insurance, the mortgage payment, $1,000 a month, they want to see a DSCR, debt service coverage ratio of 1.2. So they want $1,200 a month coming in for every $1,000 of debt. Divide 12 by 10 or 1,200 by 1,000, and you're going to get 1.2. And that's usually around 1.2, 1.25 is a good DSCR, where a lot of your asset-based lenders who just based on the asset, lend based on the asset, not necessarily you personally, or sometimes even your credit score at all. There are some no-doc lenders out there who would just lend to you. They kind of all will have different DSCRs. A 1.5 is like astronomical, and you can kind of get more. Like the better your DSCR is, the more money you can get, the more easily lenders will lend. I mean, they just won't get in your way. So if you're a real estate investor, you first start off by going to Bank of America or something, like, especially if you don't know what you're doing. You go to Bank of America. If you don't get laughed out of the bank, they'll write you a mortgage, but they'll say, look, it was hard to get that one through. We needed 25% down and probably not going to give you another one. And they'll kind of push you out quickly. And you have to go to these other portfolio lenders or specialty lenders that just focus on rental properties. And they all use some type of DSCR process with their underwriting. So they all have some type of limitations. Some will go, I've seen people go under a 1% or a 1-to-1 DSCR. They're like, we just need a 0.9. But that's usually if you're looking for like a bridge loan or something, like a 2 to 5 year debt. But, that kind of is what it is. So you just keep it simple. And when you're evaluating your deals, running your deal analysis, you can check your own DSCR, because you can take today's interest rates, see what type of ARV there would be what type of loan you could get based on that ARV, 75% of the max after repair value. Take that loan amount, put it into a mortgage calculator with that interest rate, today's rate, spit out a 30-year note, take your taxes, divide them by 12, get an insurance projection, and you can come up with the monthly carry. And then you can take your rent and divide it by the monthly carry and see what your DSCR is. So you can do this work yourself. There's no magic to it. And just focus on properties that have at least a 1.2 DSCR, and you'll be able to get some of the better lending options that are out there. These are ways where you can even invest, like if you have bad credit, there are no doc lenders that don't even credit check or pull your taxes. People have different issues, no taxes, no credit, no this, no that. You can deal with a DSCR lender, a no doc lender, and still get a deal done. We'll take a couple more questions. Hopefully you guys are getting some value out of these answers. We'll take a couple more questions. If you have them, drop them in the chat section, drop them in the comment section. And let me see if there's another good question. I got this question. I thought it was interesting. And then we'll wrap this thing up. How long should I wait for a property to be on market before I make an offer? Should I only go after properties that have been on market for 30 days and longer? So I got a question like this. I thought it was an interesting question. You shouldn't wait. Is the answer. You shouldn't wait. For me, if a deal is on the market for a minute and I see it and it looks good, we're calling them. We're trying to get in the property. We're trying to get in the property today. We want to get an offer out tonight. We want to move as fast as possible. And there have been deals that I've seen hit the market underpriced. Typically, these are like the best. It hits the market. It's been on there 10 minutes. This deal's worth $100K. They got it priced at 75. I'm looking at the pictures. I'm like, this thing looks great. If we get in there and it looks like it looks in these pictures, it's a done deal. And I've gotten those deals under contract. Hey, I could only give you 68. It's in a tough condition. They're like, cool, 68, same day under contract, boom. The next day, they're like trying to kill the contract, back out of it because they're getting other offers at 82. And I'm like, nope, we ain't backing out. The speed kills in this game. So you can get to some of the better deals fast. On the flip side, you will have some sellers who are, I guess they're not convinced. So they might be overpriced. And you come to them and you're like, look, you're listed at 105. This deal's worth 82 all day. And I'll give it to you, but I'm not giving you 90. And they're like, well, we'll take our chances. We're not taking any offers below 95,000. You got to bring your price up. And you'll hear all this nonsense. Sellers on their high horse. Okay. And then you'll see that deal. It'll go under contract. This is the confusing part. Especially there'll be people in the Boots on the Ground program who experience this. The deal will go under. They'll have me saying the deal's not worth that. And then the deal will go under contract in a week. And then what they don't know is 30 days later, the deal comes back on the market. It goes out of contract because somebody who didn't know how to value deals put it under contract, hired an appraiser. Appraiser came out, told them what it was worth, and then they backed out of the deal. We don't do that because we know what it's worth. I already know what the appraisal is going to come in as. But you'll see this because of what? The cost of construction is the cost of construction, and the value is the value. So there's only going to be one number that makes sense, or numbers below it that make sense. But there aren't many numbers above the fair market price that make sense. There's only going to be losers, people who will buy it and lose. And then there's going to be people who just are like, whatever, let somebody else lose. I'm going to wait for a more reasonable seller. So sometimes it's not that you should target deals that have been on the market longer, but sometimes if the deal has been there 30 days, and even better if it's going under contract and come out of contract because of being overpriced, the seller is now more realistic. The seller has been beaten into submission a bit more by the market and now knows they're not going to get their dream price. And that's an easier seller to deal with and to send out a lowball offer to. So if your strategy is pure lowball offers, you better be lightning quick. You better get into every deal the day it's listed and get out those super lowball offers. Or you better have a hell of a follow-up system. And the big money is in the follow-up. It is not in the in sales and anything sales related, which real estate has a lot of sales in it. The money is never in the initial approach. It's always in the follow-up. It's always in the follow-up. Number one thing they teach you in sales is people need 6 touches before they come to an agreement. People need to see you 6 times. They need to hear from you 6 times. A lot of sellers are the same. They need to hear you, hey, here's the price. No. Make a counter. No. Okay, I'll let you sit. They sit 30 days. You come back. Hey, deal's still on the market. Are you ready now? No, we're not. Okay, come back in 5 days. Are you ready now? Okay, well, I already made an offer. You counter. Now you're back. It's like the 6th touch. Now they're ready. But a lot of people give up before they get there. So they just hear the first no, and they're like, the seller said no. They just mentally block the deal out. That deal is going under contract, come back on market, price drop, done backflips, and you're not paying attention to it now because your feelings were hurt by hearing no. Stick with it. Understand that your big money is in the follow-up. It's not in the initial approach to any deal, to any motivated seller. It's in the follow-up, always. And the better your follow-up system is, the more money you're going to make. So you have to stick with the process, which is harder and harder for people to do because it's an instant gratification time, space reality, where you can go on Instagram, do all these things, and everything's quick and fast. And people want the money and results to be quick and fast. And sometimes it is, and sometimes it isn't. But it doesn't mean the results aren't there and that they're not profitable and won't break you, free. So you just got to stick with it. But it's a good question. If anybody's thinking like that, you kind of know now. When buying this is maybe one of the last questions we'll do, unless somebody drops something, and that's really good. When buying a property from somebody who owes a lot of debt or liens on the property, is it possible to just pay off all the debts and then walk away with nothing? You mean like the seller walk away? Yeah, that would be like your typical subject to deal. Most of your subject to deals, the person's going to lose their property to foreclosure anyway. So you just come in, clean up the debt, give them enough money to move out, maybe, if that. Sometimes you don't have to, depending on how much debt was owed. And then you can just take over the existing debt and have them deed you over the property, and now you control it. So, I mean, that is a good motivation for somebody. If somebody's in foreclosure, they got a ton of debt, and you get that phone call. You have to put yourself in that position. You get that phone call. You owe the bank $15,000. They're going to take your house. They're breathing down your neck for a year. And you're like, man, I'm done. I don't have the money. It's just accruing every month. And you get a phone call and somebody's like, look, I'll pay all the debt. I'm going to get you out of this thing. You'll be able to go get a rental. Your credit won't get ruined. And you just move on with your life. Buy another house in 2 years. I'll take this one off your hands. I'll cover all the back debt. I'll keep the bank happy. You're going to be like, think about this thing. Because if you can keep your credit good, you can go out and buy another house. You don't have to worry about it. If you get your credit destroyed with a foreclosure, now you're in a tougher position. So there are a lot of subject to deals that'll happen like that. It's just a matter of keeping an eye out for them and negotiating like a pro, and you get what you want. So guys, hope this helped. Wanted to give you guys some value this week, just in pure Q&A. If you're interested in the Boots on the Ground program, click the links in the description. The ride along, click the links in the description. Tap into the free trainings we have for you. Share the content with somebody who you think will get value from some of the knowledge. Stay tapped in. Rates are already falling, so I mean, everything we've been talking about this year and all the market updates, it's all starting to happen. So you got to get in the game and just bet on yourself. Last thing I'll say is bet on yourself. Get the knowledge to get yourself free from the 9 to 5, and don't worry about. I think it's a tougher decision when you're starting off with less money. If you have $5,000-$10,000 in the bank, it's hard to invest anything into mentorship and knowledge, because you feel like, man, if I don't take this and put it into a deal, I'm never going to get it done. But it's actually more of a reason, if you have less capital, to get more knowledge, because having the knowledge is going to show you how to do no money down investing. And once you learn that, now you can achieve your goals. One deal, no money down type of deal that you reposition, you make $10,000. So if you have a money issue, you need to get to the knowledge so you can solve your money issue faster. You don't need to squeeze your money. Money, it's kind of like the lifeblood of money. Money needs to flow. It needs to circulate. So you just got to let it flow. You got to let it circulate. If you start to constrict it, it's just not going to get you to where you want to go. So hopefully that helps, guys. And we'll see you on the next one. Appreciate it.